is where we're going to, refresh our virtual meeting skills, because we do have a speaker who is going to join us online. And this particular segment, I'm going to be joined by a panel on my guests, is around augmented intelligence. And if you haven't noticed by now, it's all about today technology and how we're using technology to really better the customer experience specifically. And as you look through the topics of the day and the conversations from all of our speakers, there definitely is a progression of information, and all of the previous speakers kind of build on what's been said before. So right now we're going to do, I need my phone. We're going to do a little bit of a panel discussion with my two guests. We're going to go through a few questions. And what we're going to talk about really is why technology and employees must join forces for operational efficiency. I am joined on the stage here by Suman Acharjee, Chief Information Officer at the City of Markham. Welcome. And I am joined online by Ryan Hum, Chief Client Experience Officer for the Employment and Social Development for the Government of Canada. And I think that our first guest speaker had mentioned Ryan a little bit earlier. Welcome, Ryan. Oh, hi, Ryan. Okay, I thought I was going to see Ryan. All right. Ryan, can you hear me? Yes?
Yep, perfectly.
Fantastic. Oh, there we are. Thank you. All right, so our first question, a little bit of an easy one, a softball, and I'll start with you, Ryan. Let's begin with level setting on what you see as the key benefits and opportunities of better integrating technology, AI, and employees for customers to really get the value.
I'm not going to make this answer too complicated. I think a lot of people know what AI can do and technology can do, but I oftentimes think of it in terms of a new channel to help people. A lot of our services or benefits are really complicated. Clients ask for a lot of help. That help usually costs us a lot of money. So whether it's in person, at an in-person office, or over the telephone, that costs us even more. So bringing in a new channel that has a lower operational cost can help us significantly in terms of our operational efficiency.
And Suman, at the City of Markham, what are you seeing as really kind of the opportunities of really getting the employees to really buy into how to use technology and AI?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it's interesting, we mentioned, and you've been hearing this emerging theme today about the technology. I would sort of say, it's not about the technology, but it's how we use and adopt the technology.
That's a good point.
To really make meaningful things. And so to that, some of the interesting early projects that we have moved into production at the city, and we've got about 3 or 4 major use cases that we have. It's not necessarily bringing the AI technology to the hands of the employee, but looking at the employee, what their day-to-day function is, and seeing how the technology can be used. One particular example. We have AI technology out there to detect potholes. Really big. It's pothole season right now, post-winter, and you probably hit a few on the way here or to your virtual appointment, I'm sure. But one of the things is that we have bylaw personnel, we have forestry folks, we have lots of different vehicles driving those same roads. And so as our employees are getting to these various places, we have sensors to sort of track where they are and making sure they're not speeding and all that fun stuff. But we're using that technology to also detect the movement and feed that in, and using AI type of models so that it can maybe predict, and we're getting some pretty interesting results with it, to say, okay, there's a pothole formed here or forming, and trying to get our crews out there to proactively service that. And that's actually helping reduce some of the calls that we have into our contact center. And so, there's a couple of different employee segments that's really helping. So to Ryan's point about improving efficiencies and effectiveness, that's an example of that in action.
And I think what's really important, it's a big segue on from what David was saying just a little bit earlier in terms of it's an ecosystem of tools that actually helps all parts of the puzzle to kind of make the end state better overall. Thank you for that. Technology moves very quickly. So that's another thing we actually heard at the first presentation as well, and in the second one, and I think we'll continue to hear it, and we feel it even in our day-to-day personal lives. Moves very quickly, and sometimes it's very difficult to the public sector to keep pace, right? So what has been your experience in readiness and adaptability of the public sector agencies using, technology and AI, or bringing it, into the business to really improve that customer experience? Because sometimes it feels like by the time we kind of get the approvals we need, the budget we need, right, the buy-in at all the levels, the technology has moved on to something else. So how do we really kind of integrate a very fast-paced environment with the day-to-day? Let's start with you, Saman.
So actually, I want to just do a real informal poll with the audience, if possible. So how many of your organizations actually have a production use case of AI or Gen AI technology? Just a real quick show of hands. We're not seeing very many. How about pilots?
Congratulations, sir, for your use case.
Congratulations. How many pilots out there? Okay, a lot more hands in the audience with regards to pilots. And I think this is an important point, especially with the rapid change of technology. It's really exciting, all this real cool capability, seeing one company trump the other company in terms of some of this capability. But that's a real big challenge, is by the time we get all that stuff figured out, getting the approvals, getting that capability, the technology is already changing. So do we want to go to production with something that's already changed? That's been a real challenge, and we've seen that with some of our use cases moving it into production, is by the time we're ready, there's another cool thing. Oh, well, this may replace some of the work and investment that we've done already. And so this is a real interesting time. The pace of change and the incremental capability with these tools are constantly changing.
Ryan, how are you seeing this working, directly in the government here at higher levels to have to cascade all of that learning and some of the expectations that people actually have as users?
Carla, don't change the question on me.
Well, how do we keep pace?
That was generated by AI, by the way, so that's why.
Yeah, she's not even real, right? I can't touch her. She's two-dimensional.
Some people say that.
The last couple of years before I took on this job, I was a chief data officer in one of the other government departments. And I'd say, it's night and day from 6 years ago when I had that job versus now. And a lot of it has to do with the infrastructure that's being put in place. When I started in that job, 2018 or so, pre-pandemic, I had no staff that knew what an algorithm was, let alone what a data lake was, or, a data swamp, or, I had no data scientists, no data engineers. It took me a long time to recruit the skill sets into the organization. We had no platform. We were just signing on to get Python and R into the organization. That has completely changed, right? You don't need sophisticated data skills to get into the AI space. Almost every organization has a Microsoft contract, right, which embeds Copilot, let alone so many other different organizations or platforms that exist. Cloud credits, there's probably a procurement vehicle for you to do cloud credits already, right? So all these things exist. 6-7 years ago, we had to build everything from scratch, We had to clean up the data. We had to know what data exists. We had to know what the reliability of the data was, right? We built our own algorithms and we put our own algorithms into production, right? That transmission line is completely different now. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't need some of those skill sets. I think you absolutely do. And some algorithms are much more complicated than others. But the barrier to entry has completely dropped. And so that's one of the things I would say dramatically. Now, I think there's two things that we haven't worked on as much as we can. One is our data quality still sucks. You know, how many people have had a chief data officer in their organization for, I don't know, 10 years? Lift up your hand.
I got a few in the room.
Yeah, a few.
Yeah. Keep your hand up if your data still sucks.
Are you saying we're not learning, Ryan?
Well, I'm saying that cleaning up the data takes a long time. Knowing what it is takes a long time. Getting senior management to care about it takes a long time,
Yes.
right? Like it seems this like, you know, you spend years and years cleaning up your data for what purpose? What is your, you know, outcome? What is your ROI? And these things are hard to explain to senior management,
Yep.
right? And so that's why your data quality still sucks. But if your data quality still sucks 10 years after hiring a chief data officer, are you actually ready for AI?
And it's also really around, how everybody in your organization cares about the data, right? We have the added verbiage about garbage in, garbage out. I throw back to Pascal a little bit, talk this morning around why talent management is so interesting. And it feels like the answer to how do we keep pace, I think you're telling me we have kept pace in a little bit, but there's still a lot more to do. Talent management is really gonna help us with that. And Suman, how did you want to add into that?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in. I think this is another opportunity, getting back to my opening remark with regards to how we use the technology. And so one of the things that we're exploring at the city right now is that you know, there's a lot more interest in what's happening in government. And you know, we're trying to improve housing, get more houses built. You know, and you know, there's this you know, concept of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. I don't really want to see what's development. Oh, there's a scaffolding up. What's happening in with my neighbor's property or something like that. And so we're trying to increase that transparency, and we've created a tool at the city to show what all the permits that are happening in someone's neighborhood. So you can go to our website right now. We have a tool called Map It. You can just go in and put in your address or the area of interest, and it will actually shoot out all the, or most of the permitting that we have related to that area. But getting back to that data quality issue, and sometimes that's outside of our control, because it could be our developers or it could be the homeowner that's contributed information into those PDF forms that we've heard about before, or however we're capturing those permits. And there's a data quality concern there. Oh, there may be PII data there. You know, they may have a cell phone number or some information that we need to scrub. So we're actually evaluating AI tools to help scrub some of that data. So do we need to clean up the data, or can we leverage some of these tools to help de-risk some of that?
And I think that's a fair point, particularly in the public sector, is that there's a certain respect of the data, there's a certain expectation of privacy around data that we still have to maintain for the citizens as we're working with that. Okay, so that is a great...
Can I just jump in
Yes, please.
a little bit more?
Yeah, of course, please.
So I think privacy is a base level that you need to do. But getting social license to be able to do this stuff is a step beyond, right? So I'll give a little example, because sometimes these things seem so abstract. I used to work for the Canada Energy Regulator. We regulate pipelines all across the country. We ran as a quasi-judicial court. So we had all these things called transcripts, right? Yep. We took all those transcripts for the last 60 years, tagged them all with AI and machine learning to every single line that someone said in a transcript over the last 60 years that could be associated with a First Nation, Métis, Inuit population, right?
Yep.
tag them. We know which elders spoke, what they spoke about, which community they came from, right? And we wanted to repatriate this cultural knowledge back to communities because elders are dying, right? This knowledge, this traditional knowledge is being
Yes.
lost,
Yep.
right? Great project, loved it. It took us, I don't know, a couple months to develop the model. And then it took us a year and a half to 2 years to develop the social license to
That's
give
right.
this back,
Yep.
right? So organizing a knowledge circle of elders to better steward this knowledge, right? Who does it belong to? What is the ceremony that we use to repatriate the knowledge back? Who has access rights to this? Who does it actually belong to? All these are great questions that if you're not doing it within the project, you're going to fail completely.
Well, that's a great point and a great segue into the next question, because it feels like we have the technology and the tools, we understand the systems, we know the pitfalls, people are using it and we're growing with it. But what's next? So what would you say a little bit is the next big thing? What is the next thing that we should be looking out for? And are there any risks that we should be planning for as we move on to the next thing? And I think, Ryan, we'll start with you. You started with privacy as the baseline, social license is the next thing. How would you actually tell us about what's the next thing?
Carla, I think we had a little bit of a pre-chat before all this. And the thesis that I had about the pre-chat is old is new,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Old is new. I think we have to go back to fundamentals. So there's a ton of shiny objects out there. You know, you heard me talk a little bit about data quality is, you know, that's a basic, right? That's old, not new in data science. I'd say the other thing is around measurement, efficiency, ROI, metrics. I don't think that we have these a lot in our organization, right? So in a private sector context, from a client experience perspective, a ton of data science, a ton of AI is being used for client experience. And a lot of that has to do with profit margins, right? Churn rates. When are you going to lose a client? If they haven't shopped at your grocery store for 3 months, is that the breaking point of when they don't come back?
Yep.
Right? All these metrics you have embedded into your way of thinking, into your business. And I don't think that we have the same level of sophistication in the government, right? Maybe we have it in municipalities, maybe we have it in provinces, maybe we have it in pockets somewhere in the federal government, but the sophistication of it is not as high. So let me tell you, for employment insurance, last year we had 18 million calls to the employment insurance call line, but 3 million applications.
Yeah.
Right? That's a lot of excess calls.
Yeah.
Right? But I can't tell you, even as the Chief Client Experience Officer with a data background, you know, when the timing goes haywire, right? If we didn't answer the first call or the second call, is it the third call that goes haywire? Is it the fourth call? Is it the fifth call? Which letter generated the most calls? Right? Was it a time of year? How long does it take? If we didn't answer within 5 days or 4 days or 3 days, does that escalate? I don't have any of that knowledge, right? And so that those fundamentals I think are really, really important, because how are you going to measure the return on investment of AI or any of these technologies if you don't understand those fundamentals?
Knowledge is power. Suman, how would you feed into giving us a little bit of taste of your view of what's the next thing?
So, you know, I wish I'd just go in and ask Gen AI to tell me that, but there's probably a few things that I'm really paying attention to, and I often, when folks ask me about all this Gen AI and this capability, I come back, and maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, but going back to the advent of the calculator. Remember when we first got calculators, they were pretty big machines. They were sort of like typewriters, that it wasn't portable. You know, the microchips sort of came in, and, you know, they got smaller. Then you got solar, then you got programmable, you got a lot more capabilities. You can even play video games on some of these calculators and stuff like that. And so I think, that what is old is new again is a really good comment because, I think there's going to be some evolution and revolution with some of this capability. It's interesting that we talk about AI in terms of these large language models.
Yeah.
I think, what's going to be really cool is that maybe we need to focus on smaller things. Like, is it a generalist that does everything, or is there something that's really specified for a specific function? And then that really fundamentally changes some of the fundamentals of how we manage technology, and especially in government, it's like, should we have one data warehouse? Should we have one monolithic system that sort of does everything? So I think we're going to be seeing an evolution of technology in and around reevaluating some of these things. The other thing is I think there's often a need that we want to build things. Should we be building a translation service when the next version of iOS, which I heard yesterday, with our earpods and everything like that, will do translation in real time? Should we be now thinking about how we're doing our interactions to make it more compatible with those type of things? So I think the problem is changing. The other comment I would also say is that some of these things and some of these tools are providing new data sets for us to really look at. And to Ryan's point on, is it the fourth or fifth call, and how all these interactions are being documented, there's probably new insights and new capabilities, and so there's even more data that's being generated. And so I think it's important as we sort of look and adopt some of these capabilities that we learn from the data that we have. At Markham, we're on a version 3 of our chatbot, and you can go out to markham.ca, and on the bottom corner there's a chatbot. That's using some of the latest and greatest OpenAI technology that's out there. But it's the improvement over its iteration. We're getting 80% accuracy now in terms of the response rate. We'd love it to be 100 being a government thing, because we need to have the right answer. Remember, AI is not definitive, it's prescriptive. And the right adoption of this is really important. That's going to be my last point on this, is that we're really trying to drive to real-time answers. And it's really meaningful. Like, if our council was talking about a development in a certain neighborhood, and that was on yesterday's meeting, we may be getting inquiries the next day about that. And a lot of these chatbots and this technology, it's a little bit of a Wild West out there. If it goes in and sort of sees what historically we've had on our website versus the latest and greatest information that was maybe discussed at yesterday's meeting, how do we reconcile that? And so this drive to real time is very, very important. And we've heard this theme throughout this morning. It comes back down to trust. And so, do we drive folks to our website, or do they go into, the ChatGPT and it's giving them old data? And I think that's one of the worries that I have is how do we maintain that trust? How do we show that our information is the right information and the most current information? Because these things are changing by the minute.
So entering. Go ahead, Ryan, please.
I love this chat. Simon, you brought up some really great points. I'm going to accentuate some of them a little bit more to like the worst case scenarios, right? So you were talking about dated information that your AI chatbot would use. That's not a scary situation. That's fixable, right? The worst case scenario is bad data, right? So I'll give you an example. If we scraped our website right now, that website is written with such legalese that it's actually driving phone calls more than it's reducing phone calls, right? So if we take that data and generate our AI chatbot from it, I actually suspect that we'll drive more, not less. We're going to optimize the system that currently runs in place and driving more and more phone calls. So I love the fact that Markham actually has metrics around all this stuff. I think that's really, really key. Another worst case scenario that I think about all the time is automating away all of our interaction points. So you heard me talk about, efficiencies and gaining efficiencies and reducing phone calls and in person. I think that's all fantastic. But at what point do we automate them all away that we have no interactions with our citizens right now? And then therefore we have no trust with our citizens.
The black box.
Right? Retail has understood that if you shop only online, you lose brand loyalty, right? And so this is why people package your shipments into really nice containers, right? Apple sends it to you in this beautiful iPhone box, right? That iPhone box is vacuum sealed so that when you open it up, it takes just a little bit longer for you to open up, delaying that gratification and creating an experience around that.
The psychology of it all. Yeah.
Right? But we haven't thought about that in a government space, right?
I agree.
Retail had to think about these things so they don't lose brand loyalty. And brand loyalty in our context is trust.
I love that, Ryan, because where we were going next was a little bit about the human factor, which is really what we talked about here. So I do have 2 more questions, but we're about 10 minutes from finishing, and I want to just at least throw it to the audience to see if there's any, speaking of the human factor, right, and really talking and listening to what you have to say. I'm wondering, are there any questions? Anybody would like to ask any questions of Ryan or Suman? If you don't have one, I have one. Okay, I'm going to give one, but you should think of one while I'm doing this one here. So what's old is new again, as you talked about, and the old way of seeing technology is really a robot, it's regimented, it has a bunch of equations, and my background is civil engineering, so I'm all about the 1 + 1 is 2. I heard you talk about 1 + 1 = 3, so that just, shuffles in my brain in a different way. But what that really means is that there are a lot of shades of gray, right, into the solutions. There's a human experience that needs to actually be coupled with what we're seeing here in technology and AI overall. So you started to touch on that a little bit, and maybe I'll start with you, Suman, on this one. How do you shape the use of the technology and AI so that employees can then extract and translate the information, and even the users themselves, for that excellent customer experience?
This is sort of my fundamental philosophy before all this AI stuff sort of came together. And I always talk about, how do we make the technology invisible? How do we make it so that it's easy to use and it's easy to do the right thing? And it's one thing to say, okay, here is your chatbot, ask your chatbot whatever question you want, and it'll spew an answer. But if we can sort of focus that to help support the user in terms of providing the response. So using the capability of the technology, and we've heard some of that in morning chats already, on helping bring the information to the fingertips as you're on a call with somebody or you're doing an interaction, or helping provide the reminder. Like, wouldn't it be a cool experience if you needed to make an appointment and it automatically goes into your calendar with a reminder or with some action items? Or using your chatbot to help complete a form and help submit that response, and also follow through with that. That's not one maybe technology or capability that can help provide that, but it's how you're applying the technology to help improve that. And to your earlier point around what's old and that's new again, that is really about technology. This all evolves and continues to evolve. And maybe it's not. Like, innovation is often incremental.
Yeah.
not revolutionary. There are those revolutionary moments that sort of really fundamentally change the game, but what are some of the incremental improvements that we can adopt?
And a lot of times, those revolutionary moments are not even known at the time. It's only when you look back in retrospect that you said, that was revolutionary. Ryan, how would you advise us a little bit on injecting the human factor?
So you heard me, old is new.
Yep.
I'm going to say this one. Let humans be humans. Let robots be robots. Right? There are a lot of times where humans intuitively know what to do next. And to teach a robot that takes a little bit of effort. So let me give you an example. Where I work with the federal government, almost all interactions with the public is a life event. Okay, so you're applying for EI, it's because you lost a job. Or you're having a baby. Really, really meaningful. I used to work at immigration where, you're coming in as a refugee or a new student visa, you're leaving your family for the first time. You could talk about healthcare. All of these are life events. And life events means that you're irrational, right? You and I, Carla, are engineers, right? We weren't taught that humans play into the situation, right? I think you have to think about these kind of things. So at immigration, I could tell you, we changed a call center script one time. People call the call center over and over again because they can't start their life. They can't do anything until they finish their immigration process. And so they call the call center for status updates over and over and over again, multiple times a day. What happened was we changed the call center script from, I have no update for you, your file is in progress, whatever the line used to be, to something around this human factor, right? I looked into your file and everything seems to be in order. Now notice we gave no extra information at all, right? It's just the tone. It was designed to be reassuring. We had a 30 to 40% reduction in repeat calls, right? Let humans be humans, right? We have to remember that sometimes when people are interacting with us, these are life-changing moments, and we have to build these voices into how we're communicating or interacting with people.
Thank you for that. I have one closing question, but I'm going to put it back out. Thank you. Nancy? No. Oh, there you go.
It's on now?
Yeah.
There we go. Thanks. Nancy Ortenberg from the TTC. Question for either one of you, but Ryan, I wanted to say I love what you're saying about what's old is new again. And in a previous position, I worked for a corporation who wanted to put all of their data into one area so it could be accessed by customer experience or marketing or operations or sales. And it was this big initiative. They called it the data lake. Within 6 months, we were referring to it as the data swamp, and nothing could be found, and it never worked. We come to these conferences and we hear about what's going on in other businesses or tools that we can purchase or examples from other people, and we talk about things at a 30,000-foot level. Do you have any examples of a government public sector organization where they've taken disparate data in different silos and pulled it together to solve maybe not the entire customer experience, but portions of journeys that customers experience where data was pulled together? And if you can give us some insights into what were some of the keys to success for pulling that data together so that we could improve a customer journey?
Right.
Wow. Yes?
Someone's going to start and then
Yeah,
Ryan.
I'll buy you some
Beautiful.
time, Ryan, on that one. So, there's some interesting underlying science that's going on with all this AI capability. And one of the things that, one of the challenges with these tools to provide the right response is context. And, sometimes in the data lake and the slicing and dicing and stuff that you would do to create that swamp, is that you're segmenting it for different, maybe by different periods or different contexts. And so, there's some interesting things like vector databases, for example, and that's what we're actually using on our website now to help improve, and that's been incorporated in our version 3 of our chatbot, that helps these chatbots really provide that context. And it's some of this new data science that's coming out, because vector databases has been a fundamental, but when it's applied into these contexts can really help. And so are we eliminating these data lakes and data warehouses and systems? Absolutely not. But we need to sort of use these constructs to help provide some of that context. And so I think using some of that fundamentals of AI and some of these constructs can help address some of those issues and maybe clean up some of that swamp.
Ryan?
I'm so glad you gave more of a technical answer, so I could actually play psychologist a little bit more. I think, data lakes and data swamps and pipelines and ETLs, genetic modeling, all that kind of stuff is really, really fantastic and necessary. The line that I want to use, so I guess I'm the king of one-liners right now, is don't call the baby ugly. Okay? Don't call the baby
Is that
ugly.
a Seinfeldism? I think so. What a baby.
So your colleagues are working so hard to create these data lakes, right? They're working so hard to create whatever data infrastructure that they're working on right now. You can't expect a baby to be walking or crawling. You can't expect that baby to be graduating high school next year. You can't be expecting that baby to be doing their doctorate, right? This stuff takes time and energy and maturity, right? So keep supporting your infrastructure people. Don't call their babies ugly. Use their babies. Help them grow so that they develop into the things that you need them to become, right? It's so much heavy, hard work, and all of the internal-oriented people are trying their best, and oftentimes under-resourced, right? CIOs need to make better decisions about their resource allocation.
Hey now.
I think Suman is talking to you.
This is going to be a separate talk, but babies are easy. It's the teenagers, I tell you.
Right? But this is what we need to do. We need to foster, promote culture and growth within our organizations. And when they're not hitting a home run at the very beginning, that's okay. Right? Let's think about progress and let's think about encouraging each other to do hard things, because these are really hard things.
I think that that's a perfect kind of summation and a wrap up of where we are and where we're going to be, because it could feel very daunting. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of things to change. We talked about, earlier this morning about trying to make these big shifts. And it's going to take some time and some patience, but we got to be bold in this moment as well. Suman, did you want to have any last words?
I'm good. I think this was a great chat.
It seems like you
These
two are going
one-liners, I'm taking notes. This is
It's
really
a good thing he's
helpful.
not in the room, I think.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ryan Hum on the call, and thank you, Suman Acharaji.
Thank you.
Thank you.